Hi everyone, welcome to my next video, and I hope you're all having a really great day. I was thinking about growing old today. I don't know why, maybe it's because my birthday is coming up pretty soon. And I'll be 70, and I still can't believe it. I really can't. Um, but I was thinking about how um, there's a lot of negatives about aging, and I get it. And we're all slowing down, with the years that keep passing by. But there's something else about growing old that I'd like to talk about, and that's the positive parts. That's the parts that I really value. And the more I think about it, I think it's pretty cool that we all get to grow old, or those of us that do achieve our older years, because it's a journey to get here, boy. It sure is, and it's almost as though we should have a celebration for having achieved being a senior. So I'm going to turn this around. I'm actually standing at my little beach, and I'd like to show you the sun as it's going down, and talk a little bit about the positive parts of growing old, and some ideas that I have for myself that I haven't yet talked about, because I'm really excited about them. And would I want to be 20 again? No, I wouldn't. Especially the way the world is going. I had, a lot to figure out, a lot to struggle with, and it was not easy. And sure, if I could go back and live my life over with what I know now, I think all of us could relate to that. But we all know that's not possible. And if I had the choice to either be young again and do it all over, or be almost 70 years old, I prefer being the age I am now. And I'm going to turn this around and show you the beautiful sunset and my little cove, my little beach, and tell you what I think are the good points in growing old and what I plan to do. And I tipped my kayak over because in case of rain, I don't want the rain to get in there. And I also don't want the wind to blow it away if it ever gets really windy out here, which I'm not even sure it would. And Maggie, of course, is barking because I left her in the cabin, but I'm just going to ignore her. And I love how the sun goes through the trees like that. We have so much of a richer life, I believe, as we age. For those of us who are still fortunate to be healthy, as I am, and able to retire, and especially when I've chosen to live below my means and live as cheaply as I possibly can, that's what makes it possible for me. If I had an apartment for what I understand they go for now, I would not be as relaxed and at peace as I am now, living here with my very, very inexpensive lifestyle. So let's go down here. I'll show you more of my beach. And I have some thoughts about my own life as I get older. And it's almost as though my life was supposed to evolve like this. And I'm not sure about everyone else, but I certainly feel that way. And I feel as though all the things I learned, I was supposed to have learned, and all the things that I experienced were meant to be. And I'm sure there were other things that were meant to be that I missed out on because I made the wrong choices. And I don't know if this will be too bright, but it's going to be a beautiful sunset. And I think old age hopefully teaches us that we can let all that concern go and realize that what we have now is to be treasured and to be appreciated. And that's what I do. Now, I even had an idea, and this goes along with how when I was a kid, I didn't I respected people, but I didn't understand older people. I didn't understand how someone could get that old. I really didn't. And I don't know if that's something that children do, because we just can't accept that one day we will be perhaps too old. And so I used to look at elderly people as, well, I'll never be like that. I'll never have gray hair. I'll never have all those ailments. That will never be me. And maybe we all do that when we're younger. And even my grandparents, I thought, gosh, they must be like really, really in a bad way, because I'll never be like that. I'll never have wrinkled skin or gray hair or varicose veins or any of that. That'll never be me. Well, it still isn't, but I'm sure those days are coming one day. And I realized that as I continue to age and fall apart, it's not as though my life has slowed down. It's just evolved. And it's evolved into a greater awareness and a greater understanding of everything that I have experienced. And even though my physical self is perhaps having issues, I have a touch of arthritis, and I have to wear glasses when I read, and I walk a little slower. But so what? There's still so much ahead that we can all do. Now, I've had this idea in the back of my mind for the longest time, and this is so beautiful. I hope it's not too bright. I've had this idea in the back of my mind for quite a few years, actually. And that is that since I love to write, I think I'll just keep it on here. Since I love to write, and I've written quite a bit about myself, I love the idea of real life stories. I love the idea of understanding life, of understanding struggle, and of understanding not just survival, but developing awareness of other people and of other situations. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could maybe find a nearby retirement home and meet some senior people and see if maybe they'd be interested to share their stories, and I could write a book about them. And if not just one person, maybe I could write a collection of stories about their experiences. And maybe that would be something they'd like to do. And not for my financial gain, but for theirs and for their personal gain and I guess maybe a legacy if they wanted me to write about it. And I would so love to do that. And that's always been sort of on the back of my mind, but I think I'm thinking more seriously about it now. And just to hear other people share their life stories, I think that would be wonderful. Not just for me, but for readers. And to read about what I'm calling ordinary people, not people who have achieved success in a lucrative business or excelled at a sport, or there's plenty of stories of all that. I want to write about regular, everyday people who have lived a regular, everyday life um, that is really quite extraordinary, because I find extraordinary in the ordinary, because that's what we all relate to. And sure, it's fun to read stories about people who have achieved great things, but I think everybody's great in their own way and are much more relatable to ourselves, which makes it more important, I think, to write about them. So I'm curious what all of you think. If you'd like to ever think about writing your books or your own stories or writing about other people, because I honestly think that if I could engage with other senior people, I think that they would find that their life really wasn't that ordinary at all. It was actually quite extraordinary. And I get really excited when I think about doing that. But of course, I have so many other things I'm doing. But I think if I can organize it, um, it might be just a really, really amazing collection of books. Or I could write very short books about each person. And that would be so fulfilling for me to do. But I look at it this way: if I um, gradually get to where I'm physically challenged here, I know I'll figure out a way whether I continue to live here or not, because I've always been that kind of person. I've always met challenges with creative solutions. And that's why I don't worry, because worrying does nothing. And there's always a way to work anything out. It's not always easy. Sometimes it takes a while, but there is always a way. And who knows? I might be standing here at this very beach at the age of 70 with more ideas and more videos and more things to do that I haven't thought of yet, or I hadn't thought of now. And I might be looking back thinking, gee, I remember when I was 70, and look how much I've learned since then. And what's interesting is I see the elderly now in a different light. And that is because I understand the passing of time. And I understand how much of a struggle it was for many of us. Not everyone, but many. And sometimes when I'm in the grocery store, I make sure I smile. And I kind of study their faces. I kind of try to think about, is this person happy? Are they having a good day? Are they having a bad day? And if someone's reaching for something high up on the shelf and I'm taller, I'll just get it for them. I mean, I know what that's like. But as I look at aging, I don't see it as such a scary thing anymore. I see it as a beautiful transition to a different kind of life, and a beautiful evolution in life itself, because that is the natural order of things. It really is. And I didn't understand that when I was younger. I think I probably feared it, which I think a lot of younger people do. And of course, when I was young, I didn't think that I had much to learn. I think I had it all figured out, which is, I believe, a typical sign of someone who has nothing figured out when they think they already have. And that's probably very common with younger people, because they're ready to tackle the world, and the world is ready to tackle them, which was in my case as well. I can stand out here and I can enjoy simple things like this. Not being in a hurry. When I was younger, I was always in a hurry. And now I understand. I'll tell you a funny story. It's not funny, it's actually very beautiful. And I haven't thought about this in years. And for some reason, standing here recording this video just made me think of it. I was 6 years old when I visited my grandfather in New Hampshire. And he had a farm. And I always wished I could live with him on that farm. But sadly, my relationship with him ended abruptly because of a very, very abusive thing he did to a horse. And I wrote about it in my book, I See the Elephant. But I have such a clear memory of one afternoon when I found him sitting outside in front of his house. And he had one of those log swings. I don't know if you've ever seen one. They still make them today. And every time I see one, I think of my grandpa. But he was sitting out on his log swing. And he had built his house so that it overlooked the view of the distant mountains. And below were all of his cows out in the pasture. And I knew why he built the house that way, so that he could see the view. But I found him sitting alone on the log swing, not even moving, just sitting there. And I didn't understand it. So I ran over and I sat next to him and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Nothing." Well, I couldn't figure that out. I said, how can you do nothing? How can you just sit here and do nothing? Well, I don't even think he answered me. And he continued to stare out at the mountains and at the pasture. And after a few minutes, I was completely confused and bored. And so I got off the swing and I went somewhere. I don't know where, maybe to see the ponies or in the barn or something. But for the life of me, I could not understand why he was sitting there, completely still, just staring off at the view. Well, now I understand. I understand why my grandfather didn't even answer me. And he didn't answer me because he knew I wouldn't understand. And I so wish he knew that I remember that moment, because now I know, because I can stand here and look at this view and know that he was thinking about many things in his past, and he was letting that view calm his mind, and he was thinking about all those beautiful moments that he once enjoyed, that he didn't even need to talk about, because they were for him to treasure and to remember. And sitting still gave him that peace of mind and that quiet and solitude to reflect back on those moments. And I believe that's what my grandfather was doing. And now here I am. Let's see, I was 6 years old. So that's 64 years ago. I remember that still. And it's sad that I can't tell him now, "Grandpa, I know what you were thinking." But maybe in a way, he can hear me and he does know. Isn't that a beautiful story? And it's funny the things that we can experience when we were kids and we don't think that they're all that important until years later. All of a sudden you can remember that moment and think, "Oh my gosh, that means so much to me now, but it didn't mean anything to me then." I'd be really curious if any of you have ever had moments like that. where you've experienced something as a child, and it was just one of those moments where you didn't really think that much of it, but for some reason it stayed in your memory. And looking back as an older person, it means so much now. I would love to hear if you've experienced anything similar to that. And no, I'm not dwelling on the past at all, but the past comes back to me in these little memories, more important now than they were then. And that's what makes them so special. Isn't that great? And they're not only special to me, but I can share them with you. And that makes them even more special. So thanks so much for watching, everyone. I so love this channel. I am just shocked at how fast it's growing. I really am. And honestly, I never thought that it would ever be so rewarding to me. So I hope you're all having a nice evening wherever you are. And please feel free to comment, ask me questions as always. I need more questions for Fridays. You asked, I answered. And hopefully that will be an ongoing every Friday video, because I really enjoy doing that. I still have some questions left over that I have not answered yet. But if you have any more, that would be great. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.